project this year. Through creating a debate team here at Chicago, I've gotten to really know the students on my team, who some are in the front row, some are up on stage. It's been such a pleasure to spend the year with them. We met weekly and spent Saturdays together at tournaments. So, here's what debate is about. Debate entails logical thinking, argumentation, and public speaking, and in some cases, large amounts of research on the topic. Every word you speak during a speech is scrutinized, and every time you make an argument, you must anticipate the faults your opponent may find in it. Debate is so complex because of the huge amount of things you must keep track of. Previous points made, the counter-arguments, and the evidence for both teams on both sides. A debater with an excellent memory can catch you by using your own words against you. If they can keep a running tab on everything you have said, they may use your words to find logical flaws in your argument, and it has a powerful effect. Now imagine trying to do all of this while attempting to sound eloquent and witty, and at the same time manage the adrenaline from standing and speaking in front of others. Debate really ought to be considered a sport. Approaching a podium like this one is as daunting as walking out on a field before a football team. So, this year we joined the Connecticut Debate Association, a league that has debates all over Connecticut. So, you compete with other schools, it's hosted at a high school, and on a Saturday morning, you come in at 8 o'clock, you get breakfast, and by 9 o'clock they give out the secret topic. You have an hour to read the information and start arguing at 10 o'clock. It may seem daunting, but after you do it a couple times, it's exhilarating, it's a really fun experience. So, this random topic you have to become an expert on very, very quickly. In debate, each party has a duty. The affirmative and the negative both have responsibilities they have to fulfill. The affirmative must present the case, and it needs to be strong enough so that without the negative's rebuttal, it could hold water on its own. The negative's job is solely to refute the other side. So, the affirmative, because of their burden of presenting this case, they get special privileges like defining terms and other things. Through a debate, you'll have three contentions. They're your three main points that you defend throughout the entire debate. When you go to a CDA debate, you have to prep for both sides because during the day you'll be affirmative, then you'll be negative. Throughout the course of the day, you argue on both sides. It allows you to hone and perfect your arguments, and your understanding of the topic improves. Debate is helpful, not just for lawyers and politicians, because at some point, everyone will need to convince or persuade their peers about the topic. This year, we learned the skill of mastering a topic quickly and then being able to persuade someone to take a stance on it. That's a lot when you get a topic like tax subsidies in Connecticut, and you have an hour to find out what it is and convince an audience that they should take your stance on it. You overcome stage fright. I don't think I could have made this speech at the beginning of the year. And it also allows you to represent your school on a team. There's a bit of school pride in it because when newer teams would ask us, what school are you from? And we could say, we're Chicago, this is the first year we've done it. And we surprised them when they thought it was our first year. And we also won some rounds, which really allowed us to have pride in our school. So, without further ado, here is Maisie Wanna and Kate McGrath on the affirmative, and Sarah Hava and Noah Grunberg on the negative. They will be debating the resolution that government should have unrestricted access to individual citizens' communications in the name of public safety and national security. Thanks.
Affirmative.
Okay.
Podium, you may want to speak from the podium.
Okay.
You'll have 3 minutes for the first affirmative constructive. You may commence.
Okay. My name is Caitlin McGrath, and my partner Maisie Wanag and I are affirming the resolution that the government should have unrestricted access to individual citizens' communications in the name of public safety and national security. We affirm this because the government's access to our information is necessary for many reasons. These include public safety, the protection against potential terrorist threats, and there are no specific laws against the government and NSA's current actions. First, we'd like to define some of the terms mentioned in the resolution. For the intents and purposes of this debate, we are viewing the government as the United States government. We would also like to mention unrestricted access as the idea that the government has the ability to look at, there are no restrictions and no limitations on the government's what the government can look at, as long as there is a reason for it. The government will always have a reason behind their actions. We view communications as any letters, emails, phone calls, or text messages that are sent between other people, and also regarding anything specifically sent outside of the United States. And also public safety and national security, though they are somewhat self-explanatory. Public safety and national security is the idea of protecting the American way of life, what we stand for, our freedoms and everything, that has been here since the Constitution in 1776. Going off of our first constructive, which is that the government's access to citizens' communications is necessary for public safety. This has been proven time and time again through things such as sidewalk and public cameras, where it's been shown that the use of these cameras, when people are aware that there are cameras around, it will deter criminal action in an area. So when the government does have surveillance on these people, it has shown a reduced crime rate. It has been shown to be effective. Our second point, which is obviously the threat of terrorists and how to best combat that threat, is really shown through, Our second point, that there is protection against potential terrorist threats, has been shown through all of these since 9/11, essentially. The NSA has been shown to stop over 50 attacks since the sorry. It's a little nerve-wracking. Again, I would like to state that my partner and I affirm the resolution that the government should have unrestricted access to individual citizens' communications in the name of public safety and national security. Thank you.
Would you please remain at the podium for cross-examination commencing now? You have 3 minutes.
Yep, sorry.
Okay, so based on your definition of what communication is, do you agree that the government, in the course of collecting communications, may read your emails or listen to your phone calls?
Based off of the definition of communications, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So they're not only collecting the metadata around the call, they're listening into the content of the call.
No, that's not. A simple phone call could, as far as we're concerned, is just the metadata. We're not saying that they are listening to the specific words within the phone call.
But you said they're listening into the call.
I said that they have access to the information of the call, which would just be who the call is between, particularly if it's an international call, and the duration of the call.
You also discussed public and sidewalk cameras, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And you said that the people in these cities are aware of the cameras.
Yes.
Are citizens aware of the government going through their communications?
As of now, yes, because of recent events and the current news scandal of the situation, many citizens are aware that the government is involved in their online communications.
But are they the same level of awareness if they can see the camera on the sidewalk?
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question.
Are they at the same level of awareness of the government reading their emails as they are when they see a camera on the corner of the sidewalk?
Probably not.
Okay.
Okay. We'll then begin the first negative constructive. You have 3 minutes. You may commence.
Hello, my name is Sarah Cava. My partner Noah Grunberg and I are negating the resolution that government should have unrestricted access to individual citizens' communications in the name of public safety and national security. We believe that government surveillance goes against the Constitution, is and can be misused, and has been used on the wrong people. As the negative side, we would like to define some terms that the affirmative side omitted. We would like to clear up that the Fourth Amendment forbids unreasonable searches and seizures of individuals and property without a warrant. And the Fifth Amendment protects against the abuse of government authority. We are focusing on the clause within the Fifth Amendment that protects citizens against self-incrimination. Okay, our first contention states that government surveillance goes against the Constitution. we would like to focus on the Fourth and Fifth Amendment within the Constitution. Within the Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable searches and seizures, like we said, and we believe that government surveillance and collection of data regarding calls and reading emails goes against reasonable searches and seizures of individuals and property. And we also believe that government surveillance and collection of communication data goes against the Fifth Amendment protecting against self-incrimination. Obviously, the government is using this information to seek out individuals who want to harm the United States, but by looking at this communication and finding a keyword or something that makes them guilty, this goes against self-incrimination. Self-incrimination is kind of like the right to remain silent. It can occur either directly or indirectly. We're focusing on indirectly, where information of self-incriminatory nature is disclosed voluntarily without pressure from another person. This could be talking to a friend about something over the phone or in an email, and if the government reads this, then they are violating the Fifth Amendment in that way. Our second contention is about the possible and probable misuse of the surveillance system. Certain programs used in the same manner, like stop and frisk, they're supposed to employ something called the broken windows theory. This theory states that the constant monitoring of an environment will stop crimes like vandalism, but we know that the stop and frisk program was extremely discriminatory and used racial profiling, and that's why it's been discontinued. We know that some of the surveillance has been misused in the NSA because Reuters reported that at least a dozen employees of the NSA were using the surveillance technology to spy on significant others. Are we done? Okay.
You have 17 seconds.
Okay. Reuters reported that at least a dozen employees of the NSA were using the surveillance technology to spy on significant others. In one case, one military member of the NSA collected 6 email addresses of a former girlfriend. And with that, I'd like to open myself up to cross-examination.
I'd like to start with a statement that you said, in what you said, that citizens, they may say a keyword that makes them guilty online, and I'd like to dispute that by saying that they are not guilty until they are proven as such. They may be placed on a red flag list, but there's no action taken until there's further proof that they may be guilty. Do you agree?
Well, yes, but if what they say is self-incriminatory in nature, they will be taken to trial. And by saying this, either confession or talking about a crime, or the government should not be allowed to take this out of context or take this information and bring it to trial.
They're not taking it out of context. They're absolutely looking at it in context.
That's true. I should have said that they're taking what they said that could be self-incriminatory and taking it to trial, even though that...
They're not necessarily taking it to trial until they have further proof that there's absolutely an action that could lead to violence.
Can you repeat that question or statement?
You said that after finding one word, they may take it to trial, and I'm saying that that's absolutely untrue, and that they look at the context as a whole and will continue to monitor said person even if they're not aware of it, and only at that point will they be taken to trial when there's clear action that this may lead to violence.
But still, further investigation of a citizen is an action that they're taking.
Oh, it's absolutely not. The law defines, the law says only a brief police stop is a seizure, which goes against the Fourth and Fifth Amendments, as you stated. And it's a temporary deprivation of the liberty, but when you're caught on camera or when you're unaware that you're placed on a list, you have no idea that you're not engaging with any other person or any police officer. There's no immediate deprivation of your liberty until an action is taken. There's no seizure at that point.
So you're saying that further investigation is not an action taken by...
It's not violating Fourth or Fifth Amendments in any way whatsoever, as a police seizure maybe, or if there was direct action taken immediately.
So you don't think that further investigation will lead to an action like a seizure?
Only if further action is necessary. If said person is what their actions online are proceeding to violence.
But even if they are proceeding to violence, if they say something self-incriminatory and the government or police force takes this, they're not allowed to do that because of the Fifth Amendment.
What can you state the Fifth Amendment for me? Can you tell me a
I
part
don't have the
within
exact
Fifth
words.
Amendment that says that they cannot do this?
Well, I don't have the exact words of the Fifth Amendment, but a clause of the Fifth Amendment protects citizens against self-incrimination by saying something either in an interview or an interrogation, or freely saying it, and this information is...
But
I'm sorry, that's time on the cross-examination. We need to move to the second affirmative instructor. You have 3 minutes. You may commence.
I'm Maisie Wanag, and my partner Kate McGrath and I are affirming the resolution that government should have unrestricted access to individual citizens' communications in the name of public safety and national security. Our first constructive is that government's access to citizens' communication is necessary for public safety, and public safety is the ultimate goal. Our second point is that terrorist threats, we cannot be a free country if we're constantly being threatened. We will not have the privilege to have this debate if we are being threatened by outside countries and outside forces that could take us over. Our third contention is that there are absolutely no laws that prohibit government surveillance up to this point. We elect our officials, we instill trust in them, and I'd like to continue by refuting some points that our opposing team has said. Sarah said that the government will be listening into the content of calls. This is not accurate, and the government will actually only see the numbers involved and the length of the calls. And I'd like to further continue by asking why it would matter if the government were listening into our calls, as the only reason that anyone should have any fear of the government listening into calls is if they are doing anything that would proceed to violence or anything that would be considered unlawful or a crime. If you are going about your daily business and conducting calls that are not of importance to the government, there will be no action taken, and you're absolutely fine. And I'd also like to continue by asking, still, how government surveillance goes against the Constitution in any way whatsoever. And the stop and frisk that our opposing team brought up is actually as they brought up, goes against the Fourth and Fifth Amendments, as the law says that even a brief police stop is a seizure, which is a temporary deprivation of liberty. But when you're caught on camera or speeding, or when the government places you on a watch list for saying something that is unlawful or could proceed to violence, you avoid any interaction with another human, and you're avoiding the stop and frisk. You're avoiding any racial profiling whatsoever, as they see only what you're saying or only your actions. They don't see your age or your gender or what you look like, and therefore you're avoiding any of the malintent that could come with the stop and frisk procedure. Thank you, and I'd like to open myself up to cross-examination.
So you say that it doesn't really matter if the government listens to our calls, so you admit that the government does in fact listen to our calls?
I didn't say that at all. I said that stated clearly that the government only looks at the numbers and the parties involved and the length of the phone call. I said that it would not matter if the government did in fact decide to do that, but at this point that is prohibited and they're not allowed to, therefore they don't.
Well, in fact, documents released by Edward Snowden have stated that the NSA does include listening to...
Do you know when when those documents were released?
What?
Are you aware of the dates when those documents were released?
I'm not aware of the exact date.
That was over a year ago, and there have yet to be any laws passed since then that that come from those documents that change any of the behavior of the government.
Exactly. My point was that documents reveal that the government does listen into our phone calls sometimes.
But I'd like to see
well.
proof of that. Do you have a copy of a document or anything that
Are
holds
you
that?
asking for proof of someone listening in, the NSA listening into someone's calls?
Yes.
Well, there was a report that I mentioned in my speech by Reuters about the employees who were using technology to spy on their significant others, and one member was listening into the phone calls of his former lover. So.
Well, even if this is true, there are absolutely flaws in every system ever brought up, and there's no way to guarantee within any system that there are no flaws and that there will be no abuse within that. And so I guess I'd like to ask you, if we do remove our presence online, how do you suggest that we continue to combat terrorism if the government revokes any surveillance?
Can I ask you to read the resolution again, please?
Absolutely. The government should have unrestricted access to individual citizens' communications in the name of public safety and national security.
Exactly. This is not a debate about alternatives to this program. This is a debate about whether this program should or should not.
Well, that's a given. If you ask that the government revoke its presence, then you're living a huge gap for terrorists to continue, and that absolutely plays a part.
When did we say that we wanted the government to completely?
Well, then that's what I'm asking you. What's an alternative?
We're not debating an alternative.
Well, that's a given part in a debate.
I don't believe it is.
Can we move on to the next topic, please?
Moving on. So, once the government is reading your calls, many of these calls are taken without warrants. That is a clear violation of the Fourth Amendment. So, therefore, this program is not entirely constitutional as you have described.
But what do you mean taken without warrants?
Many warrants are not issued.
They don't need a warrant to look at the length of the call and the numbers involved in the call.
I was not talking about the metadata, but the content of the call.
I'm sorry, that's time on the cross-examination. Can we proceed to the second negative constructive? You have 3 minutes, please commence.
Hello, my name is Noah Grunberg, and with my partner Sarah Kava, we are again negating the revolution that government should have unrestricted access to our communications in order to further public safety. I would like to elaborate on some of my points and, time permitting, disagree with some points brought up by the opposition. First of all, going back to our second contention that there is indeed misuse of this system, I'd like to point out the very reason we're having this debate is because of Edward Snowden. He was a contractor at the NSA who was essentially allowed free rein to roam around the system, and he had access to massive stores of top secret government data. The NSA just essentially let him walk away with all this data, and we probably would have never known that they allowed him to take it if he had not released it to news sources. This is a clear signal that the NSA is, being incompetent in its use of protection of data, as they allowed someone to just walk away with tons of classified data, something that should never really happen, and brings up the question, if the NSA cannot protect their own data, why should we trust them with all our personal data? Moving on to the third contention, the NSA is not spying on the right people. In addition to spying on American citizens, the NSA has been documented on spying on the embassies of governments and members of governments that are our allies, including Japan, France, and Greece. It's also spied on people who are not threats at all and have been pretty much confirmed to not be threatening the United States in any way, such as eavesdropping on the cell phone conversations of German Chancellor Angela Merkel. In addition, the opposition states that the NSA has stopped many attacks. While that may not be true, because we don't know, because this program is top secret. However, many attacks have not been stopped. For example, I'd like to bring up the case of the Boston bombing. The two people who did that, it was no secret that they made many trips to the majority Muslim ethnic region of Dagestan in Russia, and plenty of their data was collected here. They went to American universities, they lived here for many years, they weren't living in caves, and their data was almost certainly collected by this government program. Yes, the NSA did nothing. While they were busy spying on their girlfriends, these people were plotting to kill Americans, and they ultimately succeeded in doing that. 3 Americans were killed and over 100 were terribly injured. Clearly, the NSA is not doing a very good job at all when terrorists like that are allowed to just roam free and commit acts of murder and violence against the United States. Thank you, and I open myself up for cross-examination.
Sorry. Okay. All right. When you mentioned the Boston bombers and that their travels should have led the NSA on their trail, so to speak, correct?
I I was using that to say that it was no secret that they were potentially self-radicalized and out there to harm Americans. There were plenty of warning flags that they could have become violent, and they eventually did. Yet the
So
NSA
are you saying that we should be profiling people based off of their beliefs and where they're traveling? And the whole point, I thought you're advocating that the whole point of our government is that there are flaws in the system, yet it sounds like you're advocating that based off of their travels, we should be profiling them as potential terrorists.
I'm not advocating that at all. I was simply saying that there were signs that they were potentially going to become involved in terrorism, and that they should have been priority targets for the NSA based on that.
But what signs were there besides their travel records?
Well, they expressed interest in radical Islam and
And how would the NSA have gotten hold of this information?
by the data collection program.
Exactly, and so you're suggesting that the NSA continue to do this, but you're agreeing that it's a good idea, but that they should further take action once they have this?
Are you saying that the NSA didn't do enough? Should they have been more invasive?
No, I'm saying that the NSA did not make any good use of that data at all, and clearly they-
Exactly, but
Yeah,
by
not-
saying that, you're implying that it's good that they had the data, but they didn't take the proper further action.
So are you therefore implying that the NSA should have taken further action and been more invasive with the Boston bombers and their online profiles?
I believe that relates to the frisking that your partner Sarah brought up, in that it would involve racial profiling, and would you agree?
If I may get a point in, it is not good that they had that data. They had that data, it was attained sometimes illegally probably, and they did not use it. in an
Probably,
effective way.
how was it attained illegally? Do you have anything to back that up?
I did not say it was, I said it might have been.
Okay, that's speculation, so it's invalid.
Very well. The NSA, they had this data, but they clearly didn't follow up on it, so
So aren't you therefore saying that the NSA should have done more? Isn't that what you're saying?
no, not at all. The NSA is not a law enforcement agency. They could have taken this data and given it to the
I have a
proper
direct-
authorities.
I'm sorry, that's time on the, we'll move to the first thing. Yeah, we're running short, so you're gonna have to wait.
Hello, my name is still Sarah Kava. This is still my partner, Noah Grunberg, and we're still negating the resolution that government should have unrestricted access to individual citizens' communications in the name of public safety and national security. Just to restate our contentions one more time, we believe that government surveillance goes against the Constitution, is and can be misused, and has been used on the wrong people. I would like to bring up the legal issues involved in the government surveillance. Just to restate our definitions, that the Fourth Amendment forbids unreasonable searches and seizures of individuals and property without a warrant, and the Fifth Amendment protects against the abuse of government authority, especially against self-incrimination. The affirmative side has stated that, or has posed the question, why would it matter if the government was listening into our calls? But that sentiment does go against the Fifth Amendment and self-incrimination, because their sentiment is that if you need to hide what you say from the government, you're saying something illegal already. And while that is idealistic and may be true, it's still protected under the Fifth Amendment. If you indirectly self-incriminate yourself, action really can't be taken against you if you self-incriminate yourself. And also, the affirmative side has repeatedly said that there's no laws against government surveillance. And while we could argue day in and day out that this goes against the Fourth and Fifth Amendment, even if it does, legality is still fluid, and laws can be made in response to new weapons, new ways of surveying citizens. Just because something is illegal now or legal now does not mean that it will still have that status in the future. And that's why we're really having this debate. Just to restate, we believe that government surveillance goes against the Fourth and Fifth Amendment, and that this government surveillance is being misused and will be misused in the future, most likely. We look at programs that are in place now or have been in place, like stop and frisk, that obviously had serious issues, and that's why it was taken down. And we can't say that the NSA's government surveillance will not have the same issues, because it already has, as we said in our first speech.
Okay, proceed to the first affirmative rebuttal.
Okay. My name is Kate McGrath, and my partner Maisie Wanig and I still affirm the resolution that the government should have unrestricted access to their citizens' communications in the name of public safety and national security. We would like to review some of the points that have been brought up by our opponents. First of all, Mr. Gromberg mentioned the Edward Snowden and that there was too much freedom with his job, and that he had too much access to everyone, and that the NSA had no way of limiting him. The NSA has realized their mistakes. The NSA has come out and said, in over that year since that has happened, the NSA has mentioned that they have been too lax about their policies, and they have been adjusting their policies to prevent that situation from happening. It is not true that today, right now, everyone working within the NSA has the same ability to access information as Edward Snowden once did. Also, Mr. Gromberg mentioned them spying on other countries such as Germany. The reason that they were spying on Germany, part of the reason, was due to a nuclear threat from Germany, which won't admit to, or I'm not sure of the exact term for this, they won't admit to having nuclear weapons, but there is a potential threat for that. And that is part of the reason why the government decided to take action against Germany, as just for the protection of their own people. Also, Ms. Cava has mentioned phone calls being listened to and the use of metadata. The metadata is collected for citizens within the United States. However, phone calls are not listened to unless they're being made or received from outside of the US. Again, this is to protect against potential terrorist threats, which obviously something as great as 9/11 has a very large impact on how we view our foreign affairs programs. The NSA doesn't have direct access to what we're doing online. Companies such as Google, Facebook, and Yahoo have all said that the NSA does not have access. The NSA does have to get warrants from their information. The NSA is only authorized to intercept internet communications with at least one end outside of the US. Again, this just comes back to the basic terrorist threats. This is something that's simple and that they have to do in order to protect us. There's too much of a threat from foreigners for us to not consider the possibilities. I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now proceed with the second and last negative rebuttal.
Hello, I'm again Noah Grunberg, and me and my partner Sarah Cava are still negating the resolution that government should have unrestricted access to our communications. Before I finish up, I'd like to summarize some arguments and negate some of the points brought up by the opposition. They mentioned about how most of the communications programs that are released came up about a year ago. They said that the NSA has tightened up their act. Yet they have presented no evidence, no articles or papers or anything that the NSA has in fact tightened up their act. In fact, we've mentioned plenty of scandals that have happened where the NSA has been completely lax or outright in the wrong with what their actions. And they seem to be mistaken when we talk about like terrorist incidents. When we talked about the Boston bombers, for instance, we were not suggesting that the NSA go further. We were saying that they completely misused the data they had and that the program clearly didn't work. Going on that, they like to mention 50 terrorist plots have been stopped. It's a nice number, but there have been many terrorist plots that have not been stopped. I'd like to bring up two recent ones, for example. In 2009, the Christmas Day bombing, where a Nigerian man attempted to blow up an airliner with many people aboard. And in 2010, a car bomb almost went off in Times Square. These were not prevented at all by the NSA and only failed thanks to luck and the ineptitude of the terrorists. In addition, they mentioned the warrants from the FISA court, or that are needed. In many cases, they are not. To listen to someone's communications, all the NSA has to have is validity that someone is outside the United States when they're talking to. Many of us have relatives outside the United States. If we called them, they could just listen in on that without a warrant. In addition, the warrants from the court are very broad. The NSA just asks for some general guidelines that they have to follow before taking that data, and the court just approves it. And then the NSA can do anything as long as it falls within those general guidelines, which leaves a wide variety of possibilities open to abuse. As we've stated previously, there has been abuse. And when we strip away all this, I think we can see what we have left. It's an invasive, abusive government agency whose members are given basically free will to do whatever they want, and who are too busy spying on our allies and snooping on their families to stop actual terrorist plots in which people have died. This program is completely ineffective and should not have happened ever at all. Ever. Yeah. Thank you.
I'm still Maisie Wanai. This is still my partner, Kate McGrath, and we're still affirming that the government should have unrestricted access to individual citizens' communications in the name of public safety and national security. I'd like to start by refuting a few points that the opposing team has brought up. Noah said that this government surveillance has been used on the wrong people. That's a direct quote. I'd like to point out that they have yet to bring up a single case or example of that. Sarah also said that laws can be made in response to this, and just because, and I'd like to say that just because it's, and she said that just because it's legal now doesn't mean that it will be in the future. And I'd like to answer that by saying that we're having this debate right now, therefore the future legality is irrelevant. And also that in June 2013, just a few months after Edward Snowden released the documents, a poll taken by the New York Times reported that 12% of Americans called Snowden a hero, while 23% said he was a traitor. So that is very showing to the current legality. And I'd also like to point out that we have yet to hear an alternative way to combat terrorism, and this is absolutely relevant because we cannot suggest that we revoke all surveillance done online to monitor terrorism without a further plan as to how to make up for that. And while the opposing team has no problem refuting that, and everything we say, they've neglected to suggest any other ideas, and they're happy to point out the flaws in ours, but failing to provide other alternatives is not progressive. And Noah said that while around 50 have been stopped due to this government surveillance, more haven't. Are the 50 that were stopped, are those invalid? And what if the government had not been surveying online, and would those 50 have not been stopped? That would have been another 50 terrorist attacks. And Noah also said that they can listen to us when we are making calls outside of the U.S. And my response to that is that it does not matter, and nothing bad will come of that unless we are discussing crime and engaging in mall behavior. And I'd like to finish by resumming up all of our constructives, that the government's access to citizens' communication is absolutely necessary for public safety, as that is always the ultimate goal. That terrorist threats, we cannot be a free country if we're constantly being threatened. We will not have the privilege to engage in this debate. The fact that we're having this debate shows that our government not only has done a fantastic job of protecting us from outside forces, but they've continued to honor and protect our amendments as well. The First Amendment of free speech, and our final and perhaps most compelling argument is that there are absolutely no laws against this. There are no laws currently in place against government surveillance, and while Sarah may say that there are laws that could happen in the future, currently everything that the government is doing is absolutely legal. Thank you.
Okay guys, thank you for coming. So, first we want to plug that you guys should join the team next year if you're going to be around. It's really a fun experience. Second, we thought we'd take a little poll. Who agrees with the affirmative that the government should have the right to monitor citizens' communications? And who was persuaded by the negative that it's really not fair or right? So, no. All right, raise your hands for the affirmative case. Raise your hands for the negative case. No. Cool. All right, thank you guys for coming and have a good day.